Well, there's two questions everyone's going to ask with the newest Wild Turkey 8-year. Is it any better than the Shelfer 101 Wild Turkey? Secondly, is it worth double the price? That we're going to tackle today on the My Bourbon Journey Whiskey Review channel. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me as always. So, like I had mentioned before early on, the two questions is this going to be any better than the 101? And if so, is it worth double the price? So let's kind of dive into this, a little bit of the specs on this. So this being the Wild Turkey 8-year, obviously age stated mash bill, typical of the Wild Turkey, which is 75 corn, 13 rye, 12% malted barley. It is age stated again, as you guys can see, as 8 years old, and the MSRP on this is going to be right around 50 bucks. So it is, give or take a few dollars, about double the price of the regular Wild Turkey 101. So again, that will be the question here is this going to be worth double the price? For a 101, that's more than likely already in that 6-7 year range, kind of give or take a year or so there. So again, that will be the biggest thing right there is it worth that extra 25 bucks? Basically, can you get two regular 101s versus one of the 8-year 101. So let's dive right into this and see exactly what the 8-year 101 is going to give us. So color-wise, as you can see, pretty typical, kind of a medium burnt orange, kind of a lightish copper type of color, but really nice oil so far. So I'm kind of digging that. So hopefully that will kind of translate over to both nosing it and on the palate. So let's dive into the nose. Boy, so I love the initial richness that it has right away. The conventional 101 has much more of a softer, maybe more velvety type of profile. This feels or smells a little more kind of ramped up, like so far right on the nose. Yeah, fantastic oak that you just really don't get as much on the regular 101. Love that kind of spice, orange creamsicle type of nose there. The spice factor is much more in the forefront than what I kind of remember with the 101. And what we'll do is, as I kind of go through this and taste it, we'll pour a little bit of the 101 just to kind of see exactly as a comparison what that has to offer. Yeah, some nice fruit layers, but again, a lot of spice, definitely more of that oak profile that it has. But yeah, kind of orange creamsicle type of nose, great baking spices, again, nice oak that it has. Maybe a little touch of like a black, maybe a white pepper. It's not so peppery, so I'm gonna say maybe more of a softer pepper. Again, you do get a little bit of that kind of caramel sweetness, maybe a little bit of like a sweet tea or a honey type of note to it. Yeah, I guess as you kind of start to get into this a little bit more of the darker fruit kind of starts to come out. Again, you're not going to get blown away by all of the notes. Again, at 101, even 8 years old, it is what it is for the most part. You're not going to get a ton on this being 101 proof. But, is this going to be, again, the question, is this going to be a significant upgrade to the Shelfer 101? All right, more importantly, let's put this thing to the test and see what the Wild Turkey 101 8-year has to offer. Cheers. So what I'll say is immediately, the one thing that kind of triggers the fact that this is a little bit of another level is that amount of spice. It really coats the mouth extremely well. Vanillas, caramels, all those kind of tried and true flavors that you get. But the oak influence combined with, again, that baking spice, vanilla, orange combo are all very much more ramped up than the typical 101, being a lot of those type of similar, flavor profiles, just a little bit softer. This already feels much more, I guess, rounded out. It feels a little more developed. Like you can feel and taste that the maybe extra ages that are in this. Now again, minimum age in this is 8 years, so you could have definitely older whiskeys in here, but it does feel like that. So again, as we kind of get through this a little bit, I'll pour a little bit of the 101 and just kind of, verify if that's kind of exactly from what I remember the 101 being. But again, this already feels much more developed. Oak, spice, caramels, vanillas, a lot of that kind of orangesicle type of feel to it. Love the baking spice, the oak combo, all of that. It just feels much more developed at this point. Yeah, and one of the other things I have to also comment on is it has a more noticeable mouthfeel. All of what I've described is continuing to linger much longer than what I've remembered getting with just the regular 101. Like, I would say this, just even without tasting the regular 101 at this point, this is much more developed. The older whiskey that is in this is definitely showing up. So whether they did something a little extra special or, pulled different barrels or whatever it may be, this, at this point right now, feels significantly improved than, or significantly better, I should say, than what you get with just a regular Wild Turkey 101, in my opinion. It feels just much more elevated, much more of a sippable whiskey. Could you still obviously use this as a cocktail whiskey? Sure, you could. But if you're looking for a Wild Turkey 101 that you really don't have to second guess cocktails, but you're looking for it as more of a sipper, this really falls into that category where it is another step up or an elevation in just the quality and the taste overall profile of what this whiskey is. So like, so far it feels significantly better than the shelf Wild Turkey 101. Yeah, I guess to put it in a nutshell, it's just much richer. It's more mouth coating. The flavors are much more developed in this. The finish is definitely longer, which is helping with the overall profile and feel of this whiskey. So in my opinion, this feels like a much more elevated, maybe even more like kind of bang for your buck. I mean, at 50 bucks, and I believe this is ultimately going to be, again, on the shelves as a normal release from my understanding. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But for $50, I would say it's worth having a bottle of this. If you enjoy just the regular 101 profile, you're gonna love how this is much more just elevated. The profile is just much richer, bigger, bolder. That 101 proof, very sippable. So this kind of falls into that category of that daily sipping kind of bourbon for me. Like, I'm not one to typically want to go to the regular Wild Turkey 101 as just a regular sipper, but this changes that completely. I think it is that much better, overall. So, there you go. So there's that. But what I want to do before we wrap this thing up is, let me pour a glass of the regular Wild Turkey 101 and just give you a little feedback on that. All right, so as you can see, we've got the Wild Turkey 101 8-year here, the regular on-the-shelf Wild Turkey 101 here. So we just came off of all of that description of how much more kind of elegant, much more of a richer, more, just deep, richer profile that the 8-year has. So let's see from a comparison standpoint how much of a flavor difference there really is. So what I would say with the regular 101 is it's much softer. It almost has this velvety type of texture. There's this extra layer of sweetness, not as big and bold of flavors. Still, you get a lot of the tried and true. There's still a little bit of that vanilla caramel, orange creamsicle type of note to it. But again, much softer, less spicy, less of an oak influence that it has. This, as the 101 8-year, just has, again, as I'd mentioned before, a richer, deeper profile to it, period. So at the end of the day, is the 8-year worth that extra $25? In my opinion, I guess I would say yes. I think what happens here is it makes this feel, the 101 8-year, less of a backup, meaning like I just want to default to it being a cocktail bourbon. Like this has all of the sippability characteristics to it that really anybody who enjoys a really good bourbon has. The 101, as good as it is, it's not something I would probably typically go to as just like a sipper. Like you can, but I would probably lean a little bit more towards that being more of a cocktail bourbon, in my opinion. So, at the end of the day, there's, to me, a significant difference in the sippability factor, to this. So, again, is it worth an extra $25, meaning you can get 2 regular shelf Wild Turkey 101s versus the 101 8-year? To me, yes. But if you're looking at it from a value and the ability to utilize the 101, the regular 101, as both a sipper if you want to do that, but more of a cocktail bourbon, you can do that. So it's a little bit more of a 2-for-1 there. This, again, feels much more tried and true, much more in that really strong sippability type of category. So, there you go. In my opinion, like I had mentioned, is it worth double the price? Again, yes. It's a different kind of bourbon than the regular Wild Turkey 101 that we all see on the shelves. So when this does land, and if you're able to get it, I would highly encourage you to do so. It is a really fantastic sipping bourbon, one that offers up a tremendous flavor profile without a bunch of huge proof. So throughout the week, if you just want a really nice, bourbon that you don't have to think about, but offers up all those great flavors, the Wild Turkey 101 8-year is maybe the perfect bourbon for that. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Now, I want to hear from you. Let me know, have you gotten your hands on a bottle of this? Am I kind of in line with the breakdown of how each of these kind of fall? And what are your thoughts? I love to hear, and I think everybody watching the videos love to hear as well. So can't wait to hear your feedback and see all of that in the comments below. So again, with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another one of my reviews. If you'd like to follow me, you can on Facebook and Instagram, those places at My Bourbon Journey. If you'd like to help support the channel and become part of the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club, make sure you check out that Patreon link in the description below. That down there with a lot of other great things for you as well. So again, with that being said, thank you guys so much. And as always, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers. We'll see you in the next video.